The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download their top-rated sportsbook app and sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS, and brought to you by Adam Kasabi, the official realtor of the process. If you're looking to buy a house or refinance, processrealtor.com. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged, and Kinetic Skateboarding. Get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. On today's show, the first Ricky of 2021, and it comes with the Sixers sitting all alone at the top of the Eastern Conference. We will talk about the couple of wins, Tobias Harris's Hey Mike, Eat Shit tour, the calm dominance of Joel Embiid. Is it possible the Rockets might be good and made James Harden change his mind? And an update on the newest Ricky controversy, the fight between 1 billion babies and a tank, which generated more email and tweets than anything I think we've ever talked about, which is really very frightening. Before we get going, we're almost at 3,000 YouTube subscribers. Please subscribe at YouTube. It'll make us very happy. You know, you're watching the pod. You can watch it. It's on video here, and we do extra stuff on there, clips from the show, Mike O'Connor's film breakdowns. Somebody called the show that Adam, Mike O'Connor, and AU did the B Squad Pod. Maybe we'll get another one of those at some point. So go to YouTube, search Rights to Ricky Sanchez, and smash that subscribe button. Without any further ado, Amos and the Chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who between 20 and 21 has decided not to go forward with the mustache. That is Mike Levin. Very disappointing, Mike.
Oh, you know, it's whatever I could do to keep myself entertained, find new things. There's nothing else that I could think of at the moment, but if I do, I will make my face look stupid because of it.
Yeah, I was looking to see. I wanted to see the mustache continue, but you didn't. We got a peek of it. Only one pod, I think. One pod's worth.
My dad had a mustache for most of my childhood, and so I was kind of catching those vibes. And then we did a Zoom with a family friend, and she said it looked a little too familiar, and I think I was going for my own thing.
Right.
And so it's gone. Also, it poked Alyssa in the mouth when we kissed, and
yeah,
I can't do it.
Well, the thing with facial hair, it has to be grown in enough to get past that initial prickly phase, and didn't look like you made it past that.
No.
I would have loved to see food get stuck in it, all that kind of stuff.
Sure,
I guess
that's
not.
fine.
So,
I do eat a lot of eggs during this podcast, so that could actually be a fun YouTube project.
So Sixers played 2 games since our last pod, both victories. The New Year's Eve victory over the Orlando Magic, which could very well have been the best win since the Bucks win on Christmas 2019, maybe, just in terms of like ease of victory and the mountain that Orlando seems to have been, and then not a similar blowout versus Charlotte, but a pretty convincing win. And it seems like the Sixers play almost every New Year's Eve, right? It does seem like.
It does seem like that.
I remember one specific one, man, maybe it was 7 or 8 years ago in Golden State, and it was at a bar with my wife, and I sneakily told the bartender to put it up on the TV, and I watched it out of the corner of my eye. In any case, the Orlando game was fucking incredible. But the big story is that Tobias Harris has become the, at least for the last few games, I don't want to say the best player on offense, but maybe the best player on offense, at least the second best player on offense, and is just, you have motivated him to shake whatever ailed him in the preseason and the first couple of games, and he's looked really, really, really good. What do you have to say for yourself?
Oh man, I mean, that Orlando game was, to me, the most like full, complete, satisfying, slightly unexpected win since the game 3 of the Raptors series. That was like Joel Embiid doing windmill dunks down the lane. They never beat Orlando. They certainly never beat Orlando on the road. They certainly never beat Orlando on the road after coming back to beat the Raptors. It was just full end-to-end, like, shots were going in, people were penetrating. It just couldn't have been more satisfying. It was shocking. And then this whole time, and then to come back and then beat Charlotte in like a slightly trap game over the holidays, like there's like, you know, Terry Rozier went off, which he always does against us. And for it to be like, hey, we kind of took care of them also. I really did. It felt for the first couple preseason games and couple games of the season like, oh, this is the same team. And the last couple games, it has not felt. This is 3 straight games. It does not feel like the same team. And we pointed this out plenty of times, but like there was very little preseason. There was very little training camp. Danny Green like barely knows these guys because his contract, the trade didn't go through until he had to wait like 2 weeks longer. And so we said all that, and then immediately, kind of forgot about it because they look the same and because we're so used to them because the Sixers are the Sixers. So how could we not treat them as if they would be the Sixers? But
because they've always been.
Because they've always been.
Right.
But this looks different. I mean, Tobias does look absolutely, the first few games of Tobias this season were some of the worst basketball I've ever seen in my life. And to do a complete 180 of that, Tobias looks very in control. His brain is working tremendously.
There was a 3-pointer in the Orlando game that I feel like they were all just flying down the court, and he didn't even stop.
Yeah,
he just caught the pass.
There's been a couple of those. I think like, it's cool to see because so often, how many times during the Brett era, and I don't know if it's just maybe Brett didn't have like command or respect as much as Doc does, whatever it is, but so much it was like, hey, Brett being like, we got to get this guy to do this, and I don't think that ever happened. Like I don't think any instance of we need more of this from this guy. Pick a thing. I don't think it ever happened, and I don't know if that was just like there were fewer vibes at that point or whatever it was. But Doc has been like, we need to get Ben going to the basket more, and we need to get Tobias making quicker decisions, and like that's happening. That's just straight up what's going on, and it's cool to see. I mean, everybody, the past few games have just been excellent, very fun basketball. We can get to guys further down the roster because everybody looks good, but
there does seem to be a thing too where, and this was, I'm certainly not comparing the two teams, but when you have a bunch of guys that can shoot at once or that can shoot on the court at the same time, there does seem to be something. I suppose part of it is imaginary, but then part of it is when they're shooting well, it becomes easier for all of them to shoot. But there does seem to be something that is contagious a little bit when players are shooting well. And I was comparing it to like in Golden State's heyday, it was like, oh no. Like you were petrified everywhere. And it almost created a world in which even if Draymond was open, you're like, fuck, like one of those things. And they have all, Seth Curry and Tobias Harris hot at the same time. Even Danny Green against Charlotte, opens up hitting 3-3-pointers. And it does seem to, everything seems to rub off on one another. And last year, they're just, the starting lineup just didn't have the ability to do that. They just didn't have the shooters to do that. Even Horford, even when he's shooting the 3-pointer well, is not like a quick trigger guy. It was just never going to happen.
One of the slowest triggers.
Yeah.
The thing that the difference between these teams is, and we've talked about it before, but it's all about just making the defense have to make choices and decide which thing are we okay with, because this thing is devastating to us or too automatic or whatever. And so for really a couple years now, it's just been, should we double Embiid in the post? There's been really no other choices that the Sixers force the other team to make. But now, because of Embiid becoming a better post passer by a lot, which is probably predicated on them having better shooting, which they do, and better spacing and more well coached. And now that those shots are going in the past few games, it leads to either single coverage on Embiid in the post, which is, he's good enough, especially I've never seen Embiid this locked in offensively. Which leads to just him hitting those shots or going to the rim or whatever it is. He had a couple really impressive spin move into a dunk on Vucevic, which was really great to see.
Yeah.
And then it leads to once the defense is scared of the 3-pointers, because the Sixers are starting to get really good at just swinging the ball around, forcing the defense to rotate until they find the open shooter, and everyone's being super unselfish, which is great to see. Even Tobias making quick decisions. Then it's okay, they're hugging them. Either Embiid's by himself, or those are cutting lanes that we can go down and get those easy buckets. It's just starting to look like offense in a way that it just hasn't for many years. It's looked way less clogged, and it's been a delight to watch, really.
Well, so I wanted to move to Embiid, and I don't have too much to say different than we said last time, but it's likely no coincidence that he looks better and the lineups around him look smarter, make more sense than they did before. But he is, and it's hard to figure out. I do think there is a mental part of it that is about him deciding to execute better. I do think a focus and a calm, might be a little bit that comes with age, all of those things. But I do think it becomes easier when you're doing the right things and it actually works, So for him to pass out of a double team and sort of previously, and him to be unsure of what would happen 2 passes afterwards, I think makes him more unlikely and more hesitant to do that than if he knows that 1 or 2 passes later there's going to be an open 3 and he's going to feel good about it. And there's certainly he has been better, he's more decisive in every way, but you really need to watch the double teams and how quickly, I know probably still not as quick for you, but how much better he's handling them. There was one point in the Orlando game where it's not like he had a guard on him or something. He was still 19 feet away. He had Vucevic on him. He basically tells them to clear out. He turns around, backs down 3 dribbles. As soon as the double team comes, the minute it comes, passes it back out, it gets swung around to the other side, and there's a 3-pointer. And he has just been, and by the way, he was great defensively, I think, in the Orlando game, and then at least in part of the Charlotte game. But he's looked unbelievable on both sides. And I don't know how long he can keep up the pace that he's been at, but he's certainly been at MVP level so far. I don't think any player in the NBA has distinguished themselves as the clear-cut MVP favorite so far, and I think he is with the lead part of the field. He's been so good in so many different ways.
Well, they haven't lost when he's played, which I think is a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a Doc quote where he said, to your point, that Embiid in the Orlando game was like wanting to get double teamed so that the
Yeah.
offense could start, and that's just
Yep.
like it's a next level. Hey, take this thing that was a weakness, and now he's seeing the court so much better. I think there's still some time, like he's now making that like cross court pass from the post, kind of like Jokic-esque, finding
Yeah.
guys in the corner, in the opposite corner, which is really nice. He's still sometimes making like, you know, simple pass, like bad pass out to Shake. I think just sometimes he just gets like give the ball out of here, whereas he's not a pinpoint passer, except when he like needs to be. And I need him to like. There's a couple still too many turnovers and stuff, but I think he's getting deeper post position, which for years we've talked about how he was like kind of easily getting pushed out of the post and catching the ball like 20 feet away from the rim, and he's getting it way lower, which is making it easier on himself and easier on his passing. Like everything is way better, and it all started with Joel's conditioning, which is very clearly a lot better. And I mean he's excellent. I love him. There's no one in the league when he's as locked in. There's no one in the league that can consistently affect the game at both ends as much as Joel Embiid. I mean, like maybe Anthony Davis, but they also don't really play him at center much in LA. So I think Embiid's at his peak a better defensive player and a more impactful defensive player.
Yeah. And he, to your point about like making the cross court pass out of the post is, he doesn't always have to do that either. Like sometimes it is maybe not the easiest one, but the next to easiest one that two passes later will get you maybe even the same shot.
Yeah,
because now and a couple of interesting things, just like numbers wise, he is averaging his lowest turnover rate so far of his career, but also his lowest usage rate, which is interesting too, because he's been so good, but he's been so efficient when he's been in there. Also at 34 minutes a game, which I would like to see come down
For sure.
a tick, but I agree with you that maybe it doesn't all start from conditioning, but 75% of it comes from conditioning.
Yeah, the other thing is, as far as the usage rate goes, like I think there is concern, or at least something to watch about, like, hey, he had 11 shots in last night's game. That's not enough. He only went to the line 6 times. That's not enough. I think it becomes the defense will, just because Embiid's so good, a lot of times the defense will be just happy to, if Embiid gets in the post, they double him, and it becomes a shot for a lesser shooter off a swing. Like I thought the interesting lineups that they ran last night, there was like Seth and Shake and Tyrese were on the court at the same time, which is cool to see. That many guards, that many guys that can handle the ball. 14 times more guys that can handle the ball than last year's team. But there's times when it's going to be it's going to be Matisse and Ben and Tyrese, who hasn't proven himself much as a shooter yet, and they're going to be like, fine, take it. And I would love to get more consistent Embiid in the pick and roll, like just have him rolling to the rim, so he's either catching lobs or like rebounding a Shake or Tobias miss when the big contests and nobody's there to box out Embiid, that kind of thing. I think just like those kinds of easy looks, they didn't seem to go to him as much in last night's game and a little bit in the Orlando game. That's 2 games in a row when he only shot 11 attempts, and I just he's Joel Embiid. He's the best player on the team. We gotta. I mean, he's happy to win, like I'm sure, whatever. But like that is something to monitor as defenses continue to respect that, and he's happy to pass. I just want to make sure he's getting his.
Yeah, reward him, make him feel good about. I mean, players care about the MVP. Players care about numbers, and they should. Numbers are evidence of your performance, and it's great that he cares about wins, but getting him shots is, because I'll tell you, if they lose a couple, the first thing that's going to come out of his mouth is that he needs to take more shots.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? So
the other thing is, and we talked about plenty of times early in the season that like Seth Curry is not the starter level initiator guy, but he has some of it. Like it's easy to compare him to JJ, right? Where it's like they're both slightly undersized guards that are slightly liability-ish on defense and not like primary ball handlers. But Seth can't get a shot off as easy as JJ can, but he's way better as a ball handler. He's way more crafty around the rim.
Better passer.
He's certainly better passer, better vision. Like he has opened up that part of his game, and you saw a little bit of that in Dallas just because of how much focus that Luka draws. But like especially the last couple of games, he has been like hitting shots off the dribble, kind of like leaners, little scoop shots over the big. Like all that stuff is so important, and he's been great on defense. Like Seth Curry has not been bad on defense whatsoever. He's got quick hands, he's got good instincts. Like it's really been great to see it that like open up. Really, aside from, I mean, I guess Jimmy, Embiid's never played with that kind of guy, and even Seth isn't the best version of that kind of guy. Hopefully Tyrese becomes a better version of that guy, Shake as well, but like a guy that can get his own shot a little bit off the dribble, score at 3 levels, make the defense like pay attention to him. It's really nice to see, and I would like to, they're trying to, I think it was Rich Hoffman that noted it in the Athletic, but Embiid's trying to run the JJ play with Seth.
It doesn't quite work.
It doesn't quite work. There's not as much feel there. Maybe it'll come with time, but like,
well, his release isn't quite as quick. He
really needs like to get a lot of lift on his shot and space and time to do it. But I've been really impressed with Seth and happy he's here.
Well, Mike, it's wintertime here on the East Coast. I suppose it's wintertime on the West Coast. It just doesn't mean the same thing. It's freezing, and I started thinking about renting a home for a week in Lewis Beach, Delaware. And I thought to myself, man, if I only owned one, I wouldn't have to go through this process every single year. So I called Adam Kasabi and I bought a home. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't do that yet. I'm going to do it at some point. Adam Kasabi is our sponsor, the official realtor of the process, specializes in those homes in the Delaware beaches where the property taxes are like nothing compared to the Jersey Shore. $1,000 compared to $10,000 or $15,000 a year at the Jersey Shore. The prices are lower. The places are nicer, less crowded, in my opinion. All the shore towns are different and close to each other. If you have been considering a shore home and you've been thinking about Delaware or Jersey, go Delaware. And if you've don't know who to go to, Kasabi's the guy. KSEBE, processrealtor.com. Interest rates are super low. Right now, now's the time to get in. Adam can also help you with if it's not a Delaware beach house you're looking for. Or I suppose he could find you a house like in Wilmington if you want to live there. He can sell houses in Delaware. If it's not those, if you're looking to refinance, which I did do with Adam, again, interest rates super low, refinance with Adam. I think 11 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners have refinanced with Adam. And if you're looking for a home not in Delaware, he can't sell it to you, but he can help you find one, and he can hook you up with the right realtor. Mike, you haven't bought a home yet, right? I don't think you have, right?
I have not.
It is fucking wild. It is good to have a realtor you can trust. You walk into a house, you look at it, and the way the market is when I bought a home and the way it is now, here's this big house, and they're like, they sell so quickly, you have to decide that day whether you want to spend 30 years to pay off this home that is hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's good to have somebody who you can trust by your side. And Adam Kasabi is one of us, one of those guys. You can call him or text him 302-864-8643, 302-864-8643. Just text him, see how he's feeling. Or email him, adam@processrealtor.com. That's adam@processrealtor.com. I never spell out his name. I'll spell it out again. Kasabi, K-S-E-B-E. Adam Kasabi, the official realtor of the process. By the way, speaking of JJ, by the way, I wonder if it's just small sample size, but he has not played well this year. A lot less playing time. I think like 20 minutes a game and shooting like 20% from three. Redick. I wonder if at some point he'd be great as an extra piece, wouldn't he? If he became available at some point, if he still has anything left.
Spike
I don't know if he
crawling back on his hands and knees, coming to JJ, begging him to come home.
Well, I gotta push you out of the Tobias Harris way on your hands and knees to get to JJ.
That's fine. That's totally fine. He has looked great. I mean, look, 4 steals and 3 blocks for Tobias last night. I've been crowing about Tobias's defense since he got here. And
a really important defensive play. I think it was in the third quarter when the Hornets were making like sort of a little bit of a run, but I think he got a steal and the dunk.
The dunk was cool. When was the last time that we saw a Sixer off the dribble? And I'm so surprised it was Tobias dunk like over 2 people off the dribble.
Never. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure Roten or Noel.
It might have been Roten. I mean, Nerlens was never allowed to dribble. I mean, like, there's a chance that I can't remember any Jimmy specifics. He wasn't really getting vertical at that point.
No. Ben doesn't really dunk on people.
Yeah, Ben's not dunking on people, especially off the dribble. I mean, like Rashawn and Embiid, like occasional putback stuff, but as far as like dribbling, like, and he caught the ball at like half court or something, and so that was a very impressive play and a very un-Tobias play, and the fact that it was over Terry Rozier felt good. Felt like some demons being expunged.
Even though Rozier, of course, fucking had a phenomenal game again. I don't know what it is.
Come on, of course, every time. But it's just been. I mean, the last 2 games, and I would add the comeback in the Toronto game because that was a game that they never win. Have just been some of the most enjoyable, like, moments of Sixers basketball in a really long time. Since the Kawhi shot went in. Like, it's been great. I mean, Matisse came back and played in that Orlando game, played excellent. All of a sudden, he remembered what he was supposed to do, looked reasonably competent, getting up shots. He had an and 1, he had 3 threes, like, stealing the ball again, like, doing his thing. I mean, it's been nice. It's been nice. They're doing it to me again. They're going to do it.
Yeah, I was curious as to how far you had fallen back in. We should have known when the Ben Simmons 3-pointer happened so quickly against Orlando that it was going to be that kind of game. And all I will say, and he thought about it against Charlotte, but they closed out on him pretty quickly.
They ran the same play.
Yeah.
And Rozier just like contested it. And it was like, I mean, even just the idea of like they're contesting that shot is a factor in the offense, you know?
I know Sixers Adam doesn't like him. Man, I just think Terry Rozier is good. But he's a pretty good defender, and he's. But anyway, all I'll say about this,
if you were a coach, you would sign Terry Rozier because he's only played good against you. That would be 100% your thing.
Of course, that's my kinship with Doc Rivers is signing players that played well against me. Yeah. The only thing about the Ben corner 3 is that, brother, it's going to be there, and man, if you can hit 35% of those, it would be nice. It would be helpful for everybody. It's there, buddy. It's there. So it just shows that it's there. And Terry Rozier's reaction, I think, probably shows what it's like when you hit one. So, and I thought a nice game for Shake against Charlotte. After coming out super strong, it felt like he had been a little quiet, and I thought he was. He really actually has gotten stronger.
He has.
Yeah.
It's the first time ever that the 15 pounds of muscle might have actually been true.
Yeah. At least 7 or 8 pounds of it has definitely been true, but he looks stronger. It's definitely the difference on defense. And I think you see it on offense a little bit too.
Yeah. Like really impacting how he plays through contact. And he's not getting those foul calls yet. He sort of does on the drive, but never really on the finish yet. And he's been great. He's been excellent. He's, comfortable being on the ball or off the ball. They've certainly he's a real NBA player. Like, he's really like legitimately good, and that's not a surprise anymore. And I think he'll be off the bench this year, but just because I think they like it. But it's not unreasonable to think of Shake as a long-term piece of this team. It's really very special that he's there.
I was going to ask you that. I think he has to be in closing lineups, right? So,
they took Danny out for Shake towards the end of the Charlotte game. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the move? I guess it depends on matchups. it has to be. I was curious as to what your closing lineup would be. Obviously, Simmons, Embiid, Harris, and then is it? I almost think I would still opt for Shake and Danny over Shake and Curry, but I guess it depends on the team that you're playing.
Yeah, I think the move is probably if they're winning and they need ball handling to prevent from like the defense pushing up on them and stuff, then Shake instead of Danny is helpful there. I think if they need, if they're like locked in a whatever down 1 or 2 or something, and they need a little bit more sturdy defense or whatever, then maybe Doc would stay with Danny, and Shake would come in over Seth or something. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
I would always have Shake in it though.
Yeah, I mean he's certainly earned it. It's really, and I can't say enough how delightful. That's the best move that the previous management made, and I'm forgetting to remember who even it was because there's been so many iterations. But whoever signed Shake after they signed him to a rookie 2-year two-way deal, they signed him to like a 4-year, what was it, $6 million or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Like something crazy, something like almost Scott Kingery-esque deal. And it's been
Except
great.
He's good.
Yeah, I mean it's been excellent, and he's got more years on that. And I would love next year if they're like, whenever they can reintroduce contract talks, to just like start the extension after that now, just to be like, we want you, we are here, like whatever they have to do, like Shake should be here and he should be earning at least the mid-level. Like,
well, they'll probably do it before his last year. That would be my guess. That way they can put some of the money on that last year and spread it out.
Maybe some of the money that some of the weight that Shake's gained is the $10 million of Tobias's money that he's had in his pocket. I think that could have helped a little bit too. And look, Tobias has been great. He still owes Shake that money. Someone owes Shake that money. Maybe Ben can chip in a couple million, but like Danny somebody owes Shake money, and if it doesn't have to all come from Tobias, but some of it should at least.
You?
I don't have any money to give.
I don't know. Do you have anything else from those 2 games before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I thought obviously he wasn't the story, but I thought Ben's been great. I mean, a triple double in the Charlotte game. I love it when Ben has a young guy on him that he wants to sort of baptize, and so he had LaMelo on him a bunch of times and took it personally and took him at the rim. LaMelo's hands are really quick on defense. Like, he's obviously small, not height wise, but like just girth wise, and but he got his hands on things. He made some great passes. He does some dumb things also, but I thought that LaMelo was great and fun to see Ben like take, like, because Ben has grown up to be like 24. He's in his whatever 4th year in the league, and now he's kind of like, I'm going to show the young guys stuff, and it's fun to see him grow into that. There was one play that I was very happy about, again, like things that we're asking for that are starting to happen, is him having not only going to the rim but having more intent when he gets there. And there was a time when he had Jalen McDaniels on him against Charlotte, and he did the like slow down, like let the defender blow by so he can finish easily at the rim thing, and the deceleration that we've kind of really just never seen consistently from Ben. And it was really good to see that, because it's like, it's not him just like flying and sort of just gliding away from the rim. It is like, I'm going to let you go because I'm in control here. And I thought that's a huge element to add to his game. Yeah, I think he's been great.
Yeah, he's going to be, change and improvement happens in the offseason. So at this point with Simmons is that he can only be the best version of what he is, right? And I think certainly against, aside from like the third quarter, I thought certainly against Charlotte and maybe to a slightly lesser extent against Orlando, but like he is best when he is not put in the position to. The good thing about having extra ball handlers this year and extra shooters is that there's really very little of Ben with the ball in the half court on the perimeter. running offense. There's always somebody else to run something through. And when he has the opportunity to sort of do a lot of different things, it is when he's at his best. And I thought he was particularly good against Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, this is easily the most times I've seen him attack the rim in a half-court setting. And a lot of it is through closeouts and him getting a running start to get to the rim if he's not, because he doesn't want to shoot those threes unless they're, I guess, drawn up for him, which is fine. But I think it's been, like, he's been getting some pick and rolls. He's been beating some guys off the dribble himself. And I think that's a really nice sign of that. Like, he's willing to do it, that it's improved. There's a lot of it. His rookie year, it was he's never doing that. It was I'm only going at the rim in a transition opportunity. And I think that it's slowly adding to his game. And this year is the most easily I've seen it. And that's impactful. I think when it's not just in transition doing the drive into the middle and then kick it out, like spin around, kick it out. When it's a more structured place, when it's starting from that place, I think it's really a different element to the offense that they haven't had before, because they are starting to, defenses are really, regardless of whether we think that Ben is an excellent decision maker in the paint around the rim, like kind of thing, the defenses respect him as that, and so a lot of times they will double him. A lot of times they're doubling him when he's posting up, and it's like, what a gift that is. We don't really want Ben Simmons posting up, but no. Defenses are treating that as if that's a bad result for them, and so having him be doubled and him getting to make decisions out of the post is really nice. And so I think that any opportunity where Ben is being aggressive and going at the rim, I think is good for the offense.
It's funny. He carries himself in a way that he looks like he'd be good in the post, and I almost think he fools the defense. Like he does the pat the ball, and like looks like when he stands in there that he is about to do something very decisive. And I think that's where the double teams come from. If I was playing defense, I would just say go ahead and do it, because
maybe that'll be the case in the playoffs. But for now, they're treating that as if like that's oh crap, we got to go help, and which is nice. Anytime they're helping, the offense is winning.
The big deal with him, by the way, going to the rim, and I think like I don't know how things get scored in terms of like where the shot is, but there's a big difference between the shot being at the rim and 3.5 feet away from the rim or 4 feet away. And the thing for him is when he goes there to like try to finish in the restricted area, not outside of it. Because when it's outside of it, that's when we get those sort of high hooks and weird layups that hit backboard and then hit the front of the rim. It is the ability to, and the decision to try to finish at the rim and not sort of near the rim that I think makes a big difference for him.
Yeah, and we've seen, like in the Charlotte game, we saw both, right? There were a bunch of times when mentioned the Jalen McDaniels play. There was a time when he got an offensive rebound, kind of used his body sort of in a LeBron type way to like clear out space and go up and just finish a layup in traffic, which is nice. But then there was a time when it was an inbounds play. He did a nice, like sort of good chemistry give and go with Embiid along the baseline. And instead of going up strong or taking an extra dribble and just like using that space again, he tried to do an up and under, and Miles Bridges blocked him. And it's like, you shouldn't be getting blocked on an up and under. Miles Bridges is obviously very athletic, etc., but like you're 6'10", and you are very strong and fast and physical. So those kinds of opportunities need to be corrected. But we've seen him do that, and we're starting to see him do that more. And it's just really important to the growth of him as a finisher and as a team. Maxey?
Well, hit a three. That was nice.
He had a
floater. Yeah, floater's great. You know how you have it? You know you have a good floater when the ball doesn't fucking move in the air. Like when you shoot it and it just stays, like it doesn't spin. And got a real man. If he can just fucking he gets to the rim so quickly and decisively, and to your point about Simmons not always knowing what he does when he gets there, Maxey does know what he's going to do when he gets there. If he can just figure out the three-pointer, not this year obviously, but in the coming years, he'll be a problem.
Yeah, I think he's great. I think this is like such a nice contributing level player after his freshman year at Kentucky. I think there's potential for him to, different kinds of player, but like there's potential for him to, once the playoffs start, like he's now grown enough where he can have like a Tyler Hero level impact where the defenses are starting to have to account for him. He's capable of making like tough finishes around the rim, like opposite hand, kind of like hanging. He had a lot of like double clutch stuff. Like he just has a knack for it, and you kind of just can't teach that stuff. Would love for him to get stronger so he can start to actually finish like through people and stuff. But man, and the three was great because he had the possession before he missed short, and Ben went right back to him, and he hit it. And it's just like that's a nice bit of confidence and from Ben and from Doc and from Tyrese. It's just like he's vital to this team. And I mentioned the Seth and Shake lineups before, but like as far as a quick guard that's just like gets there, like he's it. And it's really I think that you're starting to see that there's like Kyle Lowry potential, and it's like beautiful, and I almost want Kyle Lowry on the team now. I was trying to find a way with Toronto struggling to like trade for Kyle Lowry. There doesn't really seem to be a trade
we have
there.
that in the mailbag. I don't want to blow that,
but it would be so. I mean, it'd be beautiful. It's really nice to see. It's nice to be optimistic about guys on the Sixers and the Sixers themselves. It's been a good few days.
By the way, when Maxey hit the three, there was relief on his face too.
Yeah.
Like he gave a smile and an exhale. I think it was probably nice for him to see one of those go in.
For sure. And with, Korkmaz out and Mike Scott out for a little bit, like it is, there's room for players to step up. And I think they went to a 9-man rotation last night. I think they're gonna we don't want in a condensed season, we don't want everybody playing like 37 minutes a night. And so I would love to, at least this early in the season, when they're the first team in the East, which is nice, first place. I would like some Isaiah Joe or Dakota Mathias minutes if they want to just put in a shooter that is like just get like steal 5-6 minutes at this point. Let's see what they can do with the kind of thing. So that's something to look out for.
By the way, that shouldn't be a game where we need Joe for 37 minutes. That the Charlotte game is just
they could have taken him out like late in the game. There was like 2 minutes left. They were up 14, and I always want we're always monitoring the bench minutes. I want B-Ball Paul to get in there. B-Ball Paul still hasn't played. I think I'm monitoring it. By the way, B-Ball Paul also not verified on Twitter, so I feel a kinship with him.
Oh wow!
I thought that you would get me for the year 2021. I thought you would get me verified.
I was trying.
I take it as a slight that you haven't.
It's harder than you think.
Man of the people. Neither of us have played a minute of NBA basketball yet, so we're sort of in it together, me and him. But I would like to see it.
Mike, I saw something disturbing on Twitter on New Year's Eve, and it was one of the LL engagement couples. One of the 206 people who have purchased rights to Ricky Sanchez, who have purchased engagement rings from LL that are Ricky listeners. But they were on the Fly the Process trip last year, New Year's Eve in Indianapolis. And it was then on that trip that they decided to have a child. And in the next couple of months, they went and they got pregnant, and now they have a baby that I guess in some way would not have been possible without us and LL.
That is pretty alarming.
What is it about that trip? Is it? I was just thinking about it. What is it about being in Indianapolis for New Year's?
Here's what I think it is.
Okay.
I think that they looked around and said, "We're going to Indianapolis on New Year's Eve to see T.J. McConnell. We have too much time on our hands. We need to have a child, and sort of redirect some of this
effort
time for something, for something a little more valuable."
Maybe they look at each other and go, we might have a little too much disposable income.
That could
just a little too much. LL has been getting people married and having them make babies and being part of the Ricky for several years now. He's had LL Pavorsky Jewelers for 32 years. He's been part of the Ricky for 5 or 6. The first sponsor of the Rights Ricky Sanchez podcast, as I mentioned, 206 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners have gone to LL for engagement rings. If you need the engagement ring, you're only allowed to go to LL. If you listen to this podcast, you have no other option. If you'd like to set up an appointment with him, whether online or in person, LL is waiting for you. 215-627-2252. You say, I don't want to call. I don't call anybody. That's fine. Lee at llpavorsky.com, or you can just tweet at him at llpavorsky. 707 Walnut is the store, as I mentioned, there for over 30 years now. And I'm very proud that LL spends another year sponsoring this podcast and convincing people to get married and have babies. It's just the fucking strangest thing that could ever happen. Thank you to LL for another year of supporting our charities, Coded by Kids and the Providence Animal Center. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
Fine print is Lee's your godfather, your child's godfather, or your either way. I blew it.
All right, back to the pod. All right, we got a couple of other things to get to. We got some good mailbag stuff. Obviously, an update on babies versus tanks and Harden. We got a relationship advice question that seems like it is sort of an emergency, and I'd like to suggest that we do it now because I know we don't do a ton of relationship advice during the season, but it seems like this anonymous has a situation that he could use our help with. You all right with that?
Sure.
So we'll make relationship advice brought to you by Kinetic Skateboarding. There is a connection. Of course, Ben, the owner of Kinetic, one of the owners of Kinetic, his sister-in-law is Eliza Hardy-Jones, who does our relationship advice theme song. Relationship advice brought to you by Kinetic Skateboarding. Boy, it is hoodie weather, scully weather, all that stuff. Go to kineticskateboarding.com, buy stuff, live in it, live in the comfort of their comfortable winter clothes. Also, snowboarding stuff as well. Kineticskateboarding.com, promo code Dave Silver for 9.1% off your first order. Okay, relationship advice.
I keep my heart under my pillow with my teeth and other lies. I've been waiting on your halo just to shine the light.
All right, this comes from Anonymous. Spike and Mike, I'm in a situation I've never been before, and I need some advice. My girlfriend of 4 years and I recently broke up. The breakup was very open and honest, and we both agreed that we need space right now, but we could get back together in the future. 2 years ago, she and I moved from Philly to Portland, Oregon together and have been living together ever since. The problem we're facing right now is that we're in the middle of a year-long lease together, and the only way we could break it is if we both agreed to separately move into smaller apartments in the same building. The logistics of this seem potentially problematic given that it's a very small building. As a newly single person, I wouldn't want to do anything that she could see that would potentially hurt her, but it seems inevitable. I'm not sure what the right next step is, but I know this isn't making the breakup any easier. Please make this anonymous. So, they break up. The only way they can afford the breakup is if they stay in the same building. He is worried about the idea of other relationships and her seeing what's going on in the same building. Your thoughts?
I mean, my thoughts are all pandemic thoughts. Like, you shouldn't be having fucking people come over in the pandemic. Anyway.
By the way, it was the end of the email. He also wrote, and I'm not even lying. Hold on. He works in healthcare and has been vaccinated and is very safe. And
wow.
I think it's in there, by the way. Hold on, I'm going to find his email because he actually addressed you.
Good. Well, I'm glad the brand is strong then.
P.S. Don't worry, Mike. I work in healthcare. I've been vaccinated already, and I will continue to follow protocol until everyone else is.
Okay, that's good.
So,
all right.
So let's move off that.
Good emailer.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, how much is breaking a lease? Generally,
it depends on how long it is. If they want to, it depends on the state too. If they want to, they can charge you the length of the lease. Some states it's 3 months. Some states it's 6 months. It seems like the cost is a real problem for them, and the only way they could afford it was to be in the same building but different apartments.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think same building, different apartments is like the solution. I think it's either, you get somebody else to come in there. I'm assuming it's a one bedroom. If it was a 2-bedroom, then maybe you could have somebody else move in, like, and you guys just kind of ride it out and decide that together. I think it's either. I don't think the like half step of living in the same building is like the solve, and so I would either. I mean, I had a scenario with an ex where it was like we kept living together for like a month, like 6 weeks after, and like at
After
the
you
time
broke
it was
up?
like and at the time it was like you're just kind of just getting through every day, but then you look back and you're like, what the fuck? What
How did
was
I do that?
What were we
Yep.
doing? It was not good for anyone. But you're just like, when there's those kinds of logistics in there, you're kind of just trying to make it make the days go by. But yeah, I don't think, because then you're locked into like different units, same building for like longer, and presumably you're not going to want to, like, if it's a real and public breakup, then like, I think you don't want to. It's not healthy to be around each other, or eventually you'll just fall back into something that presumably neither of you want to do. And so I would find a way to execute if you can't break the lease because of money things, which sucks. I would try to find a way to like have somebody else move in if there's a way to do that.
Oh, you mean like what's it called?
Like a friend roommate situation.
Oh yeah, I was. What's the thing where you rent out an apartment to somebody else?
Yeah, subletting might be tough for like in the lease itself. That might be a different kind of breaking the lease type of deal. I don't know.
Yeah, I would just say, okay, even if it's a year, I don't know if you're signing a new lease. I don't know what the information on that is, but I would just say, like, look, man, it's going to be a little while before anybody's coming over your apartment. And also, if we are lucky enough to be in that situation soon enough, great, awesome. Why don't you just go over their apartment for a little bit? I don't know. It seems like you're stuck there, and if you can't find anyone, then just be considerate and get out of there as soon as possible. I bet that you're pretty young. That this reads to me like somebody who is young. You're going to have a lot of time to have girls come over your apartment. Maybe just wait till you move out of the same building with your ex-girlfriend. That's what my advice would be. And my other advice, that even though you didn't ask for, needed space right now, but could get back together in the future. If that is part of your calculus, just like drop it out of your calculus. If it happens, it happens. But the get back together after you guys have slept around a little bit, I don't know, is ever a really like strong plan. Not that it couldn't happen. I just don't know that it's a plan. All right. Before we get to babies versus tanks, I want to keep the James Harden stuff limited, but I have 2 questions for you. First, John Wall seems like, both to my eye and to stats, that he is not super explosive original John Wall, but he does look like he can play again.
Yeah.
I mean, better than he was at the end before he hurt himself. He looks legit. My 2 questions to you are this. First, from a Harden Wall perspective, do you believe there's any possibility that Harden could be like, oh, maybe this isn't as fucked up as I thought it was? And because I think he and John Wall do get along at least, and just decide to stay there. And then my second question is, you had gone from, I don't want to do it, to 60-40, I would do it. And I'm just curious how the last 2 games have affected you. So those are my 2 questions.
Well, as you know, I'm not the most balanced person.
No.
Pretty just living moment to moment. The John Wall thing, you are, of course, speaking of John Wall, a member of my fantasy basketball team who I took late in the draft, and now I have your boy and former co-owner Legs reaching out to me asking what the asking price would be. So I'm already a fixer-upper John Wall building for next year, so that's exciting.
Legs is always out to make a deal. Nobody wants to make more deals than Legs.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all just love seeing John Wall play again. It's exciting that he's good, and I don't think he wouldn't have gotten his bounce back anyway at this age. But for him to be coming off an injury and that is really like cool to see. And they're a fun team to watch. They're like good. There's like good players on the team, and I think if Harden stayed, that they would be a playoff team.
and I've always been a Wall guy. I've like one argument. I used to get into Wall versus Westbrook arguments a lot, but it does seem like it's possible that Houston not only won that trade but got a draft pick along with it. So
yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously the chance that he re-injures himself. He's certainly prone to that. I think he's only played a couple of games, but like he's a better shooter than Westbrook, but he's still not a great shooter. Westbrook still has way more juice left in those legs. But yeah, I think my read is that it's irreparable, the Harden Rockets relationship. But I think it's, good that he's playing. I think they're still trying to trade him. I think he still will want to be traded, even if those guys are good and like Boogie's good and Christian Wood and all that stuff and some other players. But I think it'll be we're all just sort of biding our time until the best deal comes along, and maybe there becomes a place when Harden is like, you know what, I don't want to risk injury. I'm getting the fuck out of here, type of thing. Who knows? But
it does seem like, at least from the Houston perspective, they've done two things. They've even just getting James Harden on the court and being James Harden again was a nice little reminder for the rest of the league who might want to trade for him. Or I think he's done three things. The second thing is they've looked competent. So there's a little less desperation, I think, apparently from them. And the other thing that's happened is that, like, I don't know, I think when teams start playing, they can start talking themselves into, hey, maybe we're closer than we thought we were, a lot of teams. So I think they've done a good things in terms of the market.
Yeah, or we're not as close as we thought we were, and we need to. I mean, I think... I think
like Miami.
Or Toronto. I mean, I think Toronto's 1-4. I think you look at it as like, there's no fans. Toronto's playing in Tampa. Do they want to sacrifice whatever years of the future to picks, etc., to like get Harden there? It's not like it's a fan base thing for Toronto. This maybe is a good like sneaky tankier for them. I don't think that they will. I think there's too many good players in the team. Even if they traded Lowry because he's expiring and they get something for him, I still think that they would not be like a top 10 team. They'll still probably finish in the playoffs in the East. So I don't know. But I think there's some teams that are looking around being like, well, these guys aren't as good as we thought they were, or we think we are pretty close, or closer than we thought. So maybe if we get James Harden, we can actually make a run at this thing. I don't know. I wonder how if you're a front office or you're an owner, how the calculus of we can get James Harden for 2 years and maybe compete for a championship, but it's in a year when there's really not going to be fans there. Like, do we want to take that risk? Like, what is the calculus of that? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I don't know either. And then your willingness had gone 60-40, do it. And even though you said 60-40, your eyes said 80-20. Believe it or not, I'm not asking you to confirm or deny. I'm just saying that was my read on it.
I believe that for sure.
Where are you now?
I might still be. I'm still do it, but I'm less do it.
You're really 60-40
really
instead of lying about it.
Now,
yeah. Okay.
I am. Yeah, we talked about the defense. It's the vibes are excellent. Like my vibes meter is off the charts right now. The post game, getting some shots up from like Dwight Howard and Ben and like the rookies and stuff. Last
night, I think it was Dwight Howard, Isaiah Joe, Terrence Ferguson, and Matisse, right?
And Dakota Mathias, and the meter is blinking red because the vibes are so good. Tyrese Maxey went to pick up Popeyes for everybody as a rookie duty. That's always good for the vibes. Like it is really very solid, and you're seeing people smile. People are touching each other, high fives. Everybody having a good time. After Ben did something, I think Sam Cassell was like talking him up in the bench. I am having a good time. It's disappointing that we won't get to cheer on this team in person. Maybe they'd be worse if we did. I don't know. But it is very fun right now. They're the number 1 seed in the East. They look good. Aside from the Knicks loss, the Cavs loss, which was pretty embarrassing, but like those things happen. They're
not winning a championship without Embiid anyway. So what's
for sure. But they're right now one of the best defenses in the league. The offense is starting to hum. Like I don't know. What is James Harden? That's the end of the conversation as well.
Yeah. The one Dwight Howard thing I realized was, you're looking at him and you're like, he's the same fucking cornball he was 5 years ago. The difference is that when that guy is not the best player on the team, you can kind of sort of like pay attention when you feel like it. And I think his personality, now that he's accepted it, and he gets credit for accepting who he is on the team, a lot of credit. If he wanted to mentor a young player 5 years ago, that player would have been like, fuck off, man. But I think now in that position, it probably, like, his whole vibe just, I think, works a little bit better as a sideshow rather than the leading show. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like, it's a different situation when you're trying to still do 2012 Dwight Howard stuff, versus when you're like, I'm Derek Favors now. I'm just like really in shape Derek Favors. And like, I'm smiling and I'm having fun. Now people are like, holy shit, that was Dwight Howard. I had his poster on the wall. And now he's just like carrying a lunch pail, like kind of thing. Whereas it's sort of similar to, I mean, it's a different kind of situation, but like Carmelo carries a lot of respect to different players, but like, he's not taking all the shots in Portland. He has accepted his role as basically like Mike Scott over there. And if Dwight was trying to do like, run plays for Dwight stuff, then it wouldn't play as well. But I think like, he's just happy to be there. I'm still surprised that we got him on the minimum after the year he had last year. He's easily the best, like, straight up backup that Embiid's ever had. And it's helping this team for sure.
So we had a question in the last pod from Taylor, who said that this question had torn apart her friend group for a decade. And it was, who would win in a fight, a billion babies, 3-month-old babies, or a tank? There were a lot of, so not only did it seem to tear apart her friend group, the number of emails we received from this, startling in their efficiency at math that people did, was pretty shocking. There are a couple of things that I wanted to clear up from Taylor, which we will get to right afterwards. But a couple of things we did say: the babies are fed, and the tank does continue to get gas. So those things are not issues. I want to give you just a couple of thoughts from listeners, Mike, and then an update from Taylor.
Well, I will say that there have been just people that tweeted at us, like, everybody's getting to their own version of math. And there's some people that have been like, it would take hours. And then other people have been like, it would take 17 years. And the babies would be old enough to overtake the tank. Like, it's very funny how everyone's version of math is different. I still hold strong that based on the blast radius of the tank's equipment, that the babies would not be able to hold up.
I think both of these emails are super important, if you will. And the first person is so smart he doesn't even want to be identified by name. He said, longtime listener, first-time emailer. I heard the 1 tank versus 1 billion babies discussion, and I believe that I've made major progress towards solving it. A bit about me: I have a PhD in mechanical engineering from Carnegie Mellon. I've published multiple papers in peer-reviewed journals. I'm currently listed on 1 U.S. patent and multiple pending patents. But while none of my research has involved tank versus baby dynamics, I'm confident my general technical knowledge will help get us a better grasp on the issue. Before we can get anywhere, we need to understand just how enormously huge a number of 1 billion is. If the tank were to kill 1 baby every second, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, it would take 31 years to eliminate all billion babies. If we were to pack the babies as densely as we could without putting them on top of each other, approximately 1 baby per square foot, they would completely fill up 20,833 football fields. If we were to line those babies up, filled with football fields from end zone to end zone, it would be 1,100 miles long. So he says, scenario one, if you imagine the babies are somehow drawn to the tank in an effort to defeat it, I think they have the advantage. In fact, that the tank would need to flee from the babies. The babies could bury a whole football field 4 miles deep in their bodies. A tank would have to continue.
How are the babies drawn to the tank? Wait, I didn't know
that. Yeah, for sure. Yes, absolutely. He says the pressure from 4 miles of babies piled up would approximately be 9,000 psi, which is the pressure of 615 atmospheres. Scenario two, if any babies flee from the tank, and 1 billion spread out over 1,000 miles would be able to crawl away in various different directions, then the tank would have to spend decades hunting the babies down. This is the scenario I think is most interesting. For actuarial reasons, the babies have an enormous advantage. It would take the tank years to kill all the babies, even under ideal circumstances. Over time, the babies and the people in the tank grow older. Presumably, the tank operators weren't babies when it started. And then scenario three, if the babies don't run away or attack the tank, just sort of hang out and wait for the tank to kill them, the tank still loses. Even under this ideal scenario where the tank doesn't have to go searching for the babies or run away from them, it would still take years or decades to wipe out all billion babies. Tanks are extremely rugged vehicles, however, would be subjected to long-term wear and tear. So then we got a different email.
We can't say that the tank's subjected to long-term wear and tear, but the babies are just like fed and grow up as normal.
Well, I think what you can expect is I agree with that. The question is what is normal and how do the babies grow up? Now, you can say what Taylor does say is that the tank is always staffed with new people and the tank always gets gasoline. I do think it's fair to say that the tank isn't an indestructible tank and may need, occasional mechanical help based on killing all these babies. You know what I mean? It's not like an indestructo weapon. It's still a tank.
I don't know. Anyway. I don't know that I agree that it needs. I think if the babies are just like, if it's a video game, and it's like you're playing whatever NBA 2K, and you have it set on like stamina off, like you just have stamina forever. Like they're fine. Then they're fine. It's not like if you're playing NBA 2K, like the player doesn't like get fouled or anything, but like he's never tired. It's just existing, and it's like you just don't have to, it's not a factor. So the babies are not a factor of how they're being fed and peeing and a mother's love, all the fun stuff there. And the tank is not subject to running out of gas or ammo or people to staff it or like little upgrades, updating their OS. I think it's just like it's all working, it's all fine, everybody's good. And then how would it happen?
So then Justin sends an email.
So this guy, Mr. PhD, Mr. Medical Journal,
says babies.
Says babies. He doesn't say at any point how the babies would do it. He says,
well, like, I think
just generally the babies are maybe drawn to the tank.
No. Here's I think his best argument, which is the end one, because 3-month-old babies can't crawl or do anything. His end one is here. The point to me is, if as soon as this takes 4 years, and the babies can like get up and leave, and they would certainly have appropriate fear of the tank. A tank is not like a sniper. So he's going to have to, the tank operators are going to have to start finding these babies. And even if there are 100,000 of the 1 billion that survive to like 12 years old or 13 years old, I think 100,000 of them could swarm and defeat the tank, and they could escape in a reasonable way. Like if the babies at the end are 1,000 miles away from the babies that in the beginning, then they can get away, and finding and destroying these babies seems like impossible once they're at least mid-level children. That's my argument in it. And I think that's what his ending argument was, because I think we'd agree that the babies as 3-month-olds cannot swarm the tank. That doesn't make any sense. It can't even run away from the tank.
I think we need to know, like,
what kind of tank?
Blast radius of, like, tank shot.
We're getting there. Okay, so this comes from Justin. I wanted to weigh in on the tank versus babies debate with some expert advice. I've been in the Army for 11 years, and 6 of them were as a gunner on a tank.
Wow.
There are a couple of
we found our guy.
Yeah, the information you want, I already have, right? And by the way, there's no way. Maybe I should publish all of the emails on the Rights to Reiki site just to give them credit. I could never even read all of the emails we got on this, which are all fucking insane. There are a couple facts you should know, and I have some thoughts about the topics you guys were debating on the pod. For one, a tank. This is today. For one, a tank can shoot accurately with most of its rounds for 4,500 yards. So if the babies are in an open battlefield, it will not need to move much at a time. Also, 1 billion is a lot, so I don't know for sure, but I would say that the tracks will not get gunked up with baby. We have driven our tanks over many cars and SUVs, and they don't stand a chance. Another thing to note is that a tank has 4 different rounds you can choose from, but in this case, we have a canister, which is filled with thousands of tiny metal washers. It's basically an enormous shotgun shell made for masses of people.
Okay, this is getting upsetting in a too real way, and I just want to say, under no circumstances are we for the shooting of babies, tanks in general. Not pro this level of mass destruction. It is purely a thought exercise.
Yes,
that obviously our lunatic listeners are taking too far.
Yes. It is a logic exercise, and we do thank Justin for his service. With that being said, you could probably take out 2,000 babies per shot. Another thing to think about is that a baby doesn't know how to tend to wounds, so any injured babies in the process will ultimately end up with infected wounds and die as well.
True.
Our tanks are 72 tons of solid steel armor. The chances of a bunch of babies climbing on top of it that will weigh it down are very slim. Any babies that would get on top of the turret could be shot off, as the tank also has 3 mounted machine guns in addition to the main gun.
Jesus Christ.
All right. He says, thank you guys. I love the pod. Thanks for making a Sixers fan so much easier. So finally,
that is information. Like,
yes,
2,000 babies per shot is different than 1 baby per shot, which it seemed like some of the conversation was talking about it as.
Absolutely. And also, it stops us from having to run over all the babies with the tank. But finally, from Taylor comes, and here's what we need, and this will be the last time we ask you for opinion, but we might need a war historian and a mathematician to get together on this. Find each other on Twitter. Taylor conferred with the people who have been debating this for years. First of all, the babies are spaced out on a grid. There's no places or objects for them to hide behind. It's a giant field, so they can't hide in buildings and stuff like that. The tank is a
what do you mean? How do you mean they're spaced?
Okay, so she says each baby is given 1 square yard. Now, by the way, that is 3 times bigger than the scenario that our mathematician described, because he said 1 square foot per baby.
But they're going to crawl around.
Well, not at 3 months, probably. Yes, but initially this is how they're put out. She also says that the tank is a World War II era tank. So it does not have I would guess, the specificity or the speed that a current tank would have.
That feels like a late addition to this debate.
It's her. It
seems like she's on Team Baby and she wants to wound Team Tank a little bit more.
She says, fellow baby, she says, although they're spaced out, the babies are on a grid where there's no place to hide or objects to hide behind. Sure. It's literally just a large grid in an arena where babies are spaced a yard apart. Their only defense is to keep moving, to do so long enough to survive to overcome the tank. In current times, the tank clearly wins, but even with an older version, we have to question whether the tank would still be accurate enough to demolish babies before they're able to age in a way that is cognitively effective. I guess that's the last thing, is that it's a World War II tank, and the babies are 1 square yard for each baby. Do you change your mind at all?
I mean, I don't have an advanced knowledge of how tank functionality and killing capacity has increased since World War II.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. It seems like a late addition to this factor. If the babies are born now and get access to now stuff, then shouldn't the tank also be afforded that same luxury? Do the babies have to eat stuff
the babies
from, like,
aren't sitting there with iPhones.
But do
They're just fucking.
do they have to eat stuff and be fed from like with like 1948 function, or are we concerned about like the babies just naturally get like lead poisoning and stuff that like polio and stuff that like what about stuff that has been fixed since then? Why is only the tank subject to 80 years ago?
Are all the babies
stuff?
smoking?
Babies could be smoking. They don't even know it's bad. So.
They have no idea. Yeah. All right.
It's interesting, but I would like to hear back from Justin if he has any World War II tank knowledge. But I do think that is an unfair addendum to an already begun debate.
Well, I think we weren't given enough information, and now we have the information. I think everyone can rethink their position after maybe we hear from Justin and we hear from our anonymous physicist from Carnegie Mellon. I'm going to skip out a mailbag. We got plenty of mailbag. We'll get to them at a different time. Sixers are in first place. Savor it. Couple of big games this week. We have another one of 17 games with Charlotte in a row, but then we have the Nets later this week, right? We have the Nets, and who's on Wednesday? The Wizards again, maybe?
I think
the Wizards and the Nets.
That the Sixers did not lose at home in
2020.
The calendar year 2020. The worst year in recent memory for a bunch of reasons, but the Sixers did not lose at home,
did not lose at the Wells Fargo Center. Officially, they will have lost "quote unquote" home games,
but that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
but what an odd franchise that we've decided to give a shit about, and what a, as far like now that there's a I feel like it's been a few years, but there's now a new sort of organic Sixers Twitter bit where after a win, started with Sixers Piano Girl, continued with Sixers Violin Girl, and it's grown from there.
Jeff McDev and his mom playing
acoustic
who was great. Guitar.
Plenty of people. I think didn't Matt from Mountjoy posting some guitar something? I think I saw that.
I saw him interact with Jeff's, but I didn't see that he also joined in.
It's become its own thing, and it's beautiful to see. And it makes me think like the Sixers and the Sixers community have had so many of these kinds of things. Whether it was you Raise the Cat, like a million. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And it makes me. I've like never heard of any other fan base having anything. Like, do other fan bases even exist? Like, is the coolest thing that they have, like, our version of like 1998 Randy Wolfpack? Like, is that this level that's they're still at? It feels like if there was some sort of power rankings as far as like fan base creativity and like community goes, the Sixers would be number one by a mile.
It does seem like it does seem like maybe the process prepared us for this.
Yeah, I think that's
just other ways to amuse yourself. Oh, and one final thing, the Sixers are highlighting small businesses for every game, and the small business for the Charlotte game was Buddha Babe. So pretty neat. You're welcome, Sixers, for that one.
Very cool.
You're welcome.
Good deal.
All right. Well, let's hold on to first place as tight and for as long as we can.
If they drop to even second place at any point in the season, I'm quitting the podcast.
Then I won't fuck with you.
So those are the stakes.
The stakes are high, higher than they've ever been. Are you done with TTP?
Yeah, Lickface.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
Then I won't fuck with you.
but if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you!
Time for Plan B.